Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to continue. Just let everybody get present. Why don't you all come into the room and join us? Today we're going to continue SSB practice. And we're going to have the opportunity to learn a couple of new moves for you. We're going to be working with those shoulders of yours. This seems to be a shoulder week, right? We began Sunday night and have been continuing each day. So now let's bring the shoulders to the table. And that's another thing you're going to see about the body-mind exercises. It's not always true, but to some extent we try to coordinate what the body-mind exercises you're doing with the moves that we're doing. So today we'll have an opportunity to look at the shoulder. So I would like a volunteer. Great. So Melba, if you would just de-roll from your badge and anything in your pockets or a watch, if you could ask somebody to keep for you. Great. And glasses.
I'm okay with necklace.
Oh, why don't you, is it okay to take it off?
Yeah.
Is it okay for you to take it off? That's probably better.
I'm the collector.
You're the collector. Okay. Anybody that has any jewelry they want to dispose of, just go to Teresa.
No.
Okay. So anything you want to check out with me or ask me about before we begin?
Nope.
Great. Okay, that sounds complete. So why don't you lie down? And what we're going to do is today we've got the mic for the table. What we're finding is that the sound is not picking up adequately only through my mic and through the mic in the camera, so we have this mic here. Do we have a way of checking this out, Guy, to see how this is coming through? If Melba spoke, would you get a sense of that? Could you just say a few words to Ray? Okay. Okay. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your morning or whatever it is you would like to share with me. Doesn't have to be anything intense, but whatever.
Okay, well actually when we were doing the floor exercises,
Mm-hmm.
and we got to put plates, I became very agitated.
Uh-huh.
Where I had to get up and move. So, and it was, okay, I'm going to try and go pee anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was the one thing that kind of stuck with me.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is when we were doing the floor exercises, when we got to the hip part of the exercise, the hip place, you became agitated and felt that you wanted to get up and did so, and then you recognized, yes, that fits anyway because you would like to go pee anyway. Is that right?
Yes.
Right.
I'm finding it very hard to be present this morning.
Finding it very hard to be present this morning. Great. Okay. Are we set for sound? Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that was a little mini example of reflecting. Okay. And just to alert you, I'm going to probably ask you in a little while to turn on your side, and we may have to make some adjustment with the mic at that point. Okay. Would it be all right if I took your moccasins off? Great. So Melba, could you share with us what that was like for you?
It was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
My shoulders feel, I thought it this way.
Shoulders feel expanded. Uh-huh.
Not as crowded.
Not as crowded. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My left side feels like it's lying on the table more directly than my right side.
Mm-hmm. Left side more on the table than the right side?
Yeah, it's supposed to feel up in my hips.
Okay. You notice that even more in your hips. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
And I have a slight pain in it.
And a slight pain in the neck. Okay, great. So not that we haven't had an entry point before, but we could talk about what or who is the pain in the neck, right? Great, thank you. Comments, observations, questions? Having trouble hearing. Thank you, Jim. Yes. Entry point into a session, are you referring to, Peggy? In terms of what I just said? Thank you, Peggy. Yes, Melba referred to a pain in the neck. So what we're going to be looking at in the days and weeks to come in RSM, and we're going to be asking you to begin to observe that in the RSM demos that will take place during the week, is what we call entry points. And that is when something comes up that we see as an avenue, a way in to some emotional material or some content. So a lead-in was, for instance, a pain in the neck, and that is very much in our vernacular. So to begin to explore, for instance, so when you say pain in the neck, Melba, when you hear those words repeated to you, does that resonate with anything in your life? For instance, we won't go there now, but would be one means of going in there and see how she would respond. Which she might be say, oh yes, or she might say, well, no, that doesn't resonate with me, and then we would move on to the next, what we also call a choice point, right? It's a point of choice. Sometimes someone will say something, and we may not pick up on it for whatever intuitive reason, much like with the mirroring as we continue to develop it. There will be some mirroring, reflecting we will do where we will emphasize something or not emphasize something. As happened yesterday in the session with Carol, where Carol was talking about work, but I tended to avoid really going into that area and seeing if Carol would be willing to explore another area. If she wouldn't, we might have gone back to work. As you pointed out about the vet, which is a very good example because it's so obvious and good to look at, of something that happens in adulthood that still carries all of that weight and a resonance for the client. Okay, is that clear for everyone? Any other observations or questions, or did that? Yes, Joan. Could you talk about that? Uh-huh. Something missing. Uh-huh. Right. Okay. Should we check that out with Melba? Okay. How was that for you, having the somatic without the verbal?
Well, it's different than what I'm used to.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
And yeah, there was, a fight to fly with this guy.
Right. Uh-huh.
But it wasn't unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that that's what I was up.
Right. Right. So what I hear you saying is, though it was pleasant or wasn't unpleasant, and you were able to appreciate it, you were also missing the verbal. Even though you knew that wasn't what you were up here for, you were aware that that component was missing. And what I'd like to suggest, of course, that Rubenfeld synergy is a synthesis of both touch and talk, and yet there will be times when we will be focusing on somatics, especially like in your SSB groups, and I want you to really allow yourself to go there. And some of the SSB groups you'll have a directive to speak, but I want you to really take advantage of the opportunity in SSB when there is silence, to allow that to be and see how much emotional stuff will happen. Sure, you might not get to process it with the synergist verbally, but that doesn't mean the person on the table isn't processing a lot. And I want you to have the opportunity to experience that. Because when we're working as synergists, so much of the time we don't know what's going on with this client on the table, you know? And even though you may be even talking about something and be into something, so much else is happening. We're such complex beings, and when we're working with the body, there's so much in all parts of our body that couldn't possibly be all addressed. So I really want you to have the opportunity to experience what that's like to be in silence also, because then it's an even bigger aha when you see what happens when you put the verbal to it. Right? Yes, Audrey. Yes. Mm.
She called it a body
Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. That sounds like that's what your body needed at that time. That's great, thank you. So that would be an example of that there are times for that when the body is just calling out. And I don't know if this was true in your case, but sometimes our system is just saying, no, I don't want to talk about it right now. I don't want to process it. I just really want to be able to get the touch. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Did everybody hear that? Yes. Yes, Stephanie.
What I found very interesting about working in silence is how much more on levels you were working at
Mm-hmm.
without the distraction of the words, because we're so used to sticking our head and focusing on that and technique
Mm-hmm.
that with that piece gone, I was really able to think of a lot of different things, and it was very useful.
Great. That was what I hoped would have happened in doing this. Exactly. Thank you. Joyce.
I observed that when you take those hands, I sense people, but I also sense visually stand by
Yes.
for
Yes. Right. Absolutely. So what's happening when we're working as a synergist is that we're working on many, many different levels, and we're using our whole system, our whole sensate being. So I am listening with my hands, but I'm also observing with my eyes, and yes, with my nose, and with all of my senses in ways that I'm not certainly conscious of, but I'm using my whole system to sense a shift in breath, or a tightening of breath, to just sense what's going on. And that's happening really very much on an unconscious level. Yes, Beverly.
Saw where you without the words that you observe the experiences that you practice.
Mm-hmm.
The dance was very clear, and your flexibility was so smooth and peaceful that it came off extremely luxurious
Mm-hmm.
to me. It was the luxuriety of the silence, which I really appreciated. I felt that what was going on in you, in your observation, was also going on inside of Melba in her own ways.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Carol. Mm-hmm. Uh, sometimes. I don't know that that was necessarily going on now, but then so much is happening on a subconscious or unconscious level. So that on some level, I suppose, that's happening, but I was not particularly conscious of it. I think rather it was much less cognitive in terms of I'm wondering what's going on, and it was really joining, and I think that's where the dance is, joining Melba in really a form of trance, I would say, where we really are together and in this bubble where we are experiencing each other. And we'll be talking about that more as the weeks go by, because of course, how do we enter into a bubble together and yet keep our boundaries at the same time? So that we do join on a certain level, but that doesn't mean we don't lose self. I don't lose sense of self. And I try to assist Melba in not losing sense of self. Part of my work is to help her keep or develop her sense of self, though we don't know what's going to happen in the session. Yes, Carol. Great. Right. Okay. So let's move on. So Melba, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring your knees up and place your feet on the table. Okay. Now yesterday, when we did this, just to review this part, I'm coming down here, I'm hunkering down so I don't have to reach to get to her, which shortens my breath and tightens my shoulders. I'm going to be down here, and I'm sliding the hand in here. And yesterday what I did was let me just do the, since Melba's wearing jeans, I'm just going to go this to release the bind on her knee. Is that okay? Great, okay. So I'm going to slide this hand in here, and this hand gets placed on top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise her leg and place her foot on the table. And that seems to be okay where it is in my experience. But what I could do is if I was just uncertain, I could just lift her gently like that and place it. And she wants to be about there. Put that there. So what I've done is I raised it with the hand under here and this hand on top. And then to bring it down, I'm lifting and I'm sensing where she would like to place it and coming out. Dana, would you come up here? Dana and I were talking about a variation on a theme and how Dana learned it in her training, because things are always evolving in training, and there's no one way. And I'd like Dana to just show you it's a minor but nevertheless significant variation. And I'd like you to have the opportunity to practice both. Okay.
So the top hand is the same. It's under the upper part of the calf. But instead of holding the ankle from the top, slide my hand underneath this little hollow that's down there and support it from the bottom so that I don't really have to grab it at all. I don't have to hold on to it. I let gravity do it. Fold it into my hand and lift this way.
And then you're also then lifting the knee by cupping the knee up there. Yes.
Just a little bit of pressure, and then that lets the foot be totally free to land where it wants to land.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay.
And then the same
Mm-hmm.
little message, foot and knee.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy that space.
Right. Okay. So now why don't you bring it back down, showing us the way you bring it down. Okay, so now your hand is again under the back of the ankle and coming down and out. Great. Okay, so Melba, what was that like for you?
That was nice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I beg your pardon?
I felt the difference between the two of us.
Could you describe what you felt? Mm-hmm.
I felt more supported.
So felt more supported with the hand under the ankle. Okay. Great. Wonderful feedback. So what I want you to do in your session today, we are going to SSB class today, right? Yes. Yes. Is to practice both ways. There's no one way, and for some clients it's going to be one way, and for some clients it's going to be another way that you're going to feel more comfortable. Also can have to do with the size of the client, the weight of the client, and with you, with your hand. So just experiment with it. Okay. So, Melba, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you will, and let's see, I'm going to remove this for a moment. If you would roll over onto your right side. Okay, so, and if you could be as much perpendicular to the table as you, that's great. If you excuse me, I'm going to, let's see, I don't want this draped hitting your face. I'm going to put this there. Okay. And I'm going to give you a couple of towels for a pillow, and you tell me how that height works for you. That's good, great. And then let's take this arm, and I want you to practice. This is the time to really, you know, we're learning moves, but more important than the moves right now is for you to really imagine you can slow it all down and focus on quality of touch. So rather than what I know a lot of you are going to want to do, and certainly what I would have wanted to do, was to get right into the move, to be able to say the move will come, but right now each step of the way I want to take time. So just in lifting Melba's arm and hand and placing it up here, I want you to practice how you can do that. And notice then I'm going like this to help her settle into that place. Sort of like what we did with the knee. When the foot was up, there was that placement of the hand on the foot and the knee to help sort of do this. Okay. Does that feel okay for you?
Yes, it does.
Great. Okay. So this look a little familiar from this morning. Yes. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to begin again with being aware of my body and my own self. How am I going to be with Melba and not lose my ground, right? So I'm going to take a fairly wide stance so that I can come down. So, well, the table I think is lower than it was yesterday. It must have been lowered for the classes. So I need to get down a bit. And I'm breathing. And then I'm going to bring my hands up, and I'm going to reach forward, and I'm going to make contact on the front and the back of the shoulder. And you've already done that this week in at least one of the exercises. So this hand is behind the shoulder, cupped over the wing, shoulder blade, and this hand is in the front, being mindful that the chest area is right here. So to be able to be in the front of the shoulder, but still be conscious of the client's comfort. Does that feel okay for you? Great. So first I'm going to hang out here. First I want Melba to get a sense of me and what we're doing, because this, I imagine, is new, right? And maybe unfamiliar. Maybe for Melba it's not. Maybe she's had sessions and had this move, but for many it would be new. So first I want to hang out and let her get used to me being here. And check my own breath and take time to sense Melba and if she's breathing. And then after I'm here a while, and I just took a nice breath now, that's a signal from me, my own breath. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite Melba to move, that we're going to move her shoulder up towards her ear. And when I say invite, I would normally not be speaking, say this was in silence, but she's of course hearing me in this demo. But I'm going to invite her by the fact that I'm not going to try to move her shoulder with my hands and arms. I'm not going to be doing this. Rather, it's my body is going to be moving back. So my arms are being moved by my body. And I'm just giving her just that hint. We're coming up this way. So I'm not pulling her up. I'm just giving her that suggestion. What would it be like if we started moving the shoulder this way? And I'm just sort of doing it. I'm hanging out with her. I'm just creating that tension could be a misleading word, but just that intention. Thank you. Intention rather than tension. Great, thanks. That intention that we're going in this way, and it's being done just really by my body. And there is just that slight sense of almost like a pull, right? And we're hanging out here. This is about as far as she's ready to go right now, in my sense. So I'm hanging out here a while and seeing if she wants to go a little further. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to very gradually, and rather than abruptly, but really taking my time, I'm going to start to shift. So, Guy, you might want to just zoom in on this, because this is going to be very hard to see, because it's very subtle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift my intention, and it's going to come with my body. So we're going to start to say, let's go in the other way. And again, it's about listening hands, right? I'm listening to her with my hands. How far does she want to go? And I might have to make a little adjustment with my hands as she moves. And she's about to hear. And I'm also, of course, listening to the breath as well. And then I'm going to start coming, now she's doing more. And notice that I'm sort of moving my hands as I do it now. So we're coming like this. It's more movement. And then I come a little bit, bring my hands further this way. So I'm more on top of the shoulder. And I'm coming back this way. And that's about where she goes. And then I come down a little and I start going this way. And here. And she is, I'm imagining that we're listening to each other, and she's figuring out, her system is figuring out what I'm doing, what I'm asking for, and then she's got to process how her level of comfort in doing it, and how far she wants to join me, or how much she needs to hold on. and be safe, I imagine. So my responsibility is to be listening and trying to respect the space that she's willing to move in. And now we're getting a little bit more. So we're getting a bit more of this. So this is now about her range. Yeah. And if the arm falls, Melba, that's okay. You don't have to hold on to it. On the one hand, it helps to have the arm up to facilitate the downward and upward movement. But on the other hand, if the client has to hold on, they've got to tighten up, right? So, okay. Now we've got a little bit of this. Okay. Okay, now we have this happening. So Melba, why don't you share with me what's happening for you right now?
Well, when we first started, it was much slower, and I felt the resistance there.
Yes.
Taking out really long to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you did it, the more fluid it felt.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt less resistance in myself. I don't know what changed, but I just felt like I could go a little bit further.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. Everybody got that? Any questions at this point? Any noticings or questions about what you saw? Great. What an astute group we've got here. Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, just now when she was talking, right? Uh-huh. Yes, great. Thanks, Joyce. Okay. Mm-hmm. There are other, if this was of discomfort, there are other moves that you will learn, and another one we're going to actually do this morning. That's another way of doing the shoulder. It doesn't involve having to be this way. Was that of discomfort for you?
Not at all.
Not at all, right. And that doesn't mean there might not be a client that there would be. Yes. Sounds like you have some experience with that? Uh-huh. Right. Right. Okay, so thank you. So that's very important. Every client is going to be different, and we're going to be accommodating the moves, given how much information they share with us. But then that's part of our listening also. If I observe that when I'm doing this move with Melba, she never goes anyway, or perhaps tightens even more. Sometimes we're working with a client, we just observe them tightening more and more. Hey, if we're listening and paying attention, we know there's something going on here. And hopefully I would move to another place and see what happened there. And eventually, hopefully, that information would come out, what that's about, what that goes back to. Yes? Great question. Yes, I used this move because it was on schedule. Probably, actually, I wouldn't have done the move if she had said there was a pain in the neck, right? If she had said there was a pain in the neck, I probably would have gone down and worked with the feet, right? That doesn't mean I might not have gone to the neck late in the session, depending on what happened. But again, we want to avoid being in the fix-it modality. So therefore, oh, I got a pain in the neck, I don't go and try to take care of that. Rather, the philosophy is, I do want to assist her with the neck. I would like to see that happen. But to go right to the problem, you're coming up against the wall where the tension is. So what I want to do is say, move to another part of her body and facilitate opening up in the other body. And if I get other places in the body to open up, then when we come to the neck has a lot more space to move into, to release into. The neck has already started to shift because the rest of the body has started to shift. So I want to go to the place that's more easeful first before going to the neck. Yeah, and yes, it was on schedule for today. Thanks for the great question. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is come around, and I'm going to take this arm and hand, lift it, and bring it around and place it here. And I'm going to ask you if it is, how would that be for now? Is that comfortable for you? I'm going to place, so I'm taking the arm, I've lifted the arm, I'm placing her hand on my waist, and you'll notice our forearm wrist area is sort of on top of each other, but I've got my hand supporting her elbow. Because what I want to do is help facilitate having her have a straight arm so it doesn't bend like this, but yet not have a straight arm so that it's rigid, right? So I want to help her have a straight arm, but also be an easeful straight arm. What I don't want is for her to tighten up. And then I'm going to take this arm, be down so that I don't have to stretch, and I'm going to reach across to the back of her shoulder blade, and I'm going to take the tips of my middle fingers, and I'm going to place it right here in this luscious, you know that luscious place we've all got there behind the shoulder blade. And I'm going to place my fingers there, and what I'm going to do is, again, I'm using my body. My body's moving forward. My fingers here are a guide, so the shoulder blade is almost coming around my fingertips, right? So I'm coming this way and back, and I'm listening to how far, again, her range of motion is. The reason I did the other move first, we generally do the other move first. There's no set rule, but generally it's a series of moves. I'm going to just teach you a couple of them today. That we begin at the head with the shoulder, you saw me do. And then when we get to this, the shoulder's already opened up so much. So I'm like this, and I'm coming like this. And she's already open. So now we're coming out this way, and she's opened up a lot. This is a nice stretch here. And then coming back. When you're working with somebody in your room, they may not be in this open a place. But notice I'm not doing it with my arms like this. The arms are just guiding, right? And then I want you to also experiment with what happens if I place the hand over here and I do it this way. And I want you to find what seems to be the comfort level for you. If I've got the hand on this side and this hand here. Comment, Peggy? Yes. Yes.
Shoulder holds a lot, and it's one of the larger joints in our body. So you don't feel discouraged.
It's not going to necessarily look like this, right?
Take your own shoulder right now, and just put it down inside and move it up to your ears first. And just move it really slow. With a least amount, notice the different places where you want to move and where you want to stop. And then take it out like this. Notice the places where you want to move and where you want to stop. So that first freedom and slow process.
Yes. So don't...
Feel
Mhm.
So it's not a pushing through.
As this happened here.
Listening, really listening.
Right. Peg, yesterday in the body-mind, we spent, and again this morning with Lynn, but yesterday when I was leading it, we spent time looking at the numbers on the dial of the clock and noticing, for many of you, I'm imagining, notice where the glitches were when you were moving the shoulder not only up and down, but around. So if you could experience that in your shoulder, when you're doing it to yourself, imagine what happens to the client when somebody else is doing it to them. So Melba, for whatever reason, really was released and was easeful with that. And a lot of that, of course, came from the first move we did. She shared with us her process with the first move. What were you aware of with this, Melba?
The stretch felt really good. As a matter of fact, you could have taken my arm right out of the socket and it would have been all right.
Mm-hmm.
But I did feel it was very smooth. And it always feels good. But my husband just does it too, and I enjoy that.
Okay.
I did notice that
Yes.
when the first position that you used with my arm on the left-hand side, it felt more comfortable. On the right-hand side, I felt it was, I experienced it as being more confining or more scrunched up in my shoulder. My shoulder was higher and I didn't have as much ease of movement.
Mm-hmm. So when it was on the left, there was more space to move,
Space, yes.
and on the right, it was more scrunched and more confining for you.
Yes, that's an experience.
Great, thank you. Now, this is very important modeling. We want you to be doing this continuously in your SSB groups. What happens for many of us, especially in the first year, we feel to give feedback to our partner synergist would offend them, would make them feel bad, they're going to feel criticized. And that gets compounded by a lot of times in the sharings, people are talking about feeling inadequate and they feel stupid or they don't know what they're doing. You know, those old tapes that most of us have, and that can inhibit us. But we've got to remember this is a training program, and if you share with a client respectfully using language of grace and caring, but if you share what your experience is, even I don't like it that way compared to that way, you've got to understand that's a gift. You're gifting that synergist. How are they going to learn and grow in this program if they can't get the kind of feedback? And you are going to give feedback that none of us teachers can give. Sure, we can observe from the outside what you're doing, and we can assist you that way, but we're not feeling the touch. So you are in a very unique position to give feedback to your partners. Okay, one more piece. Okay? So again, coming down, I'm going to take this hand, and I'm going to take the hands like this, so we're palm to palm. And I'm going to take this hand and place it on Melba's elbow again. And it's wrapped around, but not tight, easeful. And again, what I'm trying to do is create a straight arm without locking. And I'm on a bit of an angle. Before I was more straight on when I was doing the move on the hip. Now I'm on a bit of an angle, not a sharp angle, but a bit of an angle. And what I'm doing is, with our hands like this, we're just going to do this. And we want to make sure that the arm stays straight, so we don't get into bending and she's going like this. But that this is straight without locked. And I want you to take time, because it's like you've got to really listen here. You've got to figure out where's the entry point, where's the way in so this shoulder can freely move back. You know, it's like the window or the doorway for this shoulder blade to move back is fairly small. If I'm off, it's going to like hit the edge, the door jamb. So we just have to listen, listen, listen. What's the way in? And what's her limit? And then come forward. So now this is a sequence. First we're up at the head, which is beginning to open up the shoulder blade. Then there's the hand behind the shoulder blade and the hand on the hip. And then this is the next piece. And this does, as Peggy was talking about how much we hold in the shoulders. This, most of you probably have experienced this and what this feels like. This is not only getting into the shoulder blade where so much is stored, but what's also happening, what happens when we open the shoulders? Stephanie just pointed right here, the heart. When we open up the shoulder blades, what we're opening up is the heart center. How many people know about holding on in the heart center in this room? Right. So Melba just raised her hand, so there's another entry point, right? We could still explore that if this was in our... So, okay, now, don't expect to be doing this. We spent a lot of time. Melba, we've been here a half hour doing this. So there's a lot of time. I'm demoing. I don't want you to feel that you need to get to this place. Remember, the learning is to listen, not how far you get, just like body-mind. Okay, so I'm going to come out once more, and on this out, I'm just going to let this hand come up there and just let this come down like this. And there's just a little bit of a gentle tug here. And then I'm going to place this hand here and step back. So how was that for you?
Good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was different than movement this time. It just felt different in a different place or something,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the movement.
Yeah, and it was different. We were moving at a different angle.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, angle. Mm-hmm. Any observations, questions? Yes, Peggy. Mm-hmm. Let's do it right now.
Because the whole idea is
Yes. Yeah, that's our next step is to roll onto the back. I'm going to just take this out for a minute. Okay. Yes, and that would be the, now what we could have done, and you might want to do in your class, is to actually have them roll on the back in between each one. I would not probably do that in a session, but it would be good probably for you to do it in your class so that you can get the feedback of, okay, now what are you aware of now that you're, just like we do in the body-mind. You know, those times some of you I know are saying, oh, we're going to roll over again, you know. Well, it's like to help you really get a different sense of one side and the other. So now that you're on your back, what are you aware of, Melba?
Definitely feel the difference between the two sides.
Mm-hmm.
And my left side feels more supported by the table, including right down the left side of my spine.
Mm-hmm. So not only up at the shoulder, but right down the spine on the left side.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there's just a quality of feeling in it. It feels heavier, but not a bad heavy, more just a letting go of heavy, you know, when you kind of feeling like going to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Ah, okay, that sounds good to me. Now I got to get somebody to do it to me, right? Okay, wonderful. So why don't you roll over onto your other side? Place this under your head again. Let's just find out what's happening. Yeah, I guess the mic is still okay. And if you would, let's see, let's again take this arm of yours, place it up here. Now this time I'm going to move through it more in a flow and spend less time talking about what I'm doing. Because you've already seen it once, and I'll let you see the flow, and also I want you to be able to get to your class. But if I invite you, if you have a question, just say Rob, and we can stop at any point rather than you just hold the question. Okay? Now when you're doing this, I want you to remember, all of you, that it's a very different shoulder. So if you have certain expectations of what it should be like based on the other shoulder, to just allow yourself to say, oh, what's this shoulder like? It's like, who is this person like as versus that person? And our other theory is that, of course, the shoulder, despite maybe or maybe not having a different personality, also observed the other shoulder and also observed what was going on. So it already, I imagine, is already looser than it would have been, right? And that doesn't mean loose, but maybe looser than it would have been. And actually, actually, this shoulder seems a bit willing. Yes. Okay, let's come over here. So, what's happening for you right now?
And I noticed that I experienced pain in my shoulder, right around there, which was something that I experience every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was worked on in a lot of that. And that movement,
Mm-hmm.
the stretching that felt good and felt natural. And it reminds me of something that someone once told me about, actually about dancing, and how in dance, your arms are supposed to come out of your back.
Hmm. Your arms are supposed to come out of your back. Uh-huh.
Like that's a goal, I guess.
Yes.
And that's what I felt. I thought, I understand what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
It was all like he was coming back and forth from my shoulder. I already started doing that.
Great. Thank you. So, talking earlier about somatic as versus talk, look at the wealth of information that's in there. The pain, which I may or may not have picked up on, and then these wonderful metaphors about the dancer. So then that's what happens when we have been talking throughout what may have developed. Marge. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Looks like I'm bringing my arms, and I'm bringing all the way.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Great.
And that was the sense of that too. That.
Right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Right. When I'm up the head, could you just come back up? Yes. If you are you willing to do a little bit more? So here it's on this position. It's more what we call a lunge position, right? When I was doing this, so with one leg forward. Here, I'm more in this position rather than a lunge. So I'm down and I'm more centered. So my weight is more, I'm down, I don't want to be tipped forward. So I'm down like this so that I'm reaching, and hopefully by being down far enough, I can reach forward without tipping. And so it's more like I'm moving my body more this way. And that's facilitated my being low enough. If I'm up here and I'm going to try to move my body, I'm going to be off balance. So that's, again, the practice, which we'll spend a lot of time on in your groups, of, and I don't think we've even got into what we call BOMA. Did we get into? Okay. Of being down here. And what we also have called the monkey, right? Which is, right? And I call the Marx Brothers. So, would you like to roll over onto your back? And great, thank you. And check out what it's like now, left side and right side.
Well, there's still a difference between the two, but I definitely
Yes.
feel the right side is being lowered on the table.
Yes.
And it feels as though actually my shoulders is lower, if you can take a bit lower along my body,
Mm-hmm.
towards my feet.
Towards your feet, right? Not up as far towards your ear.
Correct.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Any awareness in your pelvis?
yes, actually, I can feel that I'm holding some tension now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking, oh, my legs are flat.
Uh-huh.
I can let go
Uh-huh.
because I've noticed now. Like,
Right. Yes. That's noticing. Right. So now you could invite, oh, I'm aware of you, legs. I can let you go.
right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to let go of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Right. And of course the legs come from the pelvis. Right. So we can't really let go in our legs without. And we'll spend a lot of time with the pelvis in the coming days and weeks. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We remove this for you. And why don't you choose a side of the table you would like to roll over onto? Great. Take some time to ground on the table and see what it's like. This is another important piece, is now to observe, as Peggy was pointing out about lying on the back and noticing the left side and the right side. And you can do that in between each of these moves. You don't have to do the whole sequence the way I did. But now to help the client, to help Melba, notice, okay, what are you aware of in your shoulders or wherever now that you're vertical, sitting up?
In the shoulders and my back.
Tingly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. More alive.
You know, we feel like moving.
They feel like moving. Well, when you're ready, I invite you to come to the floor and perhaps you will move. We'll see what happens.
Floor feels, my feet feel flatter.
Feet feel flatter. Okay, so why don't you try walking and seeing what that feels like. Mm-hmm.
Move, you know.
Go ahead. Yes.
I don't really need to. It just feels like I fit like a pendulum, you know.
Right. Well, maybe you don't need to, but I invite you to move however you would like.
There's a much more easement.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Great. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It feels like my arms are coming actually from the center of my spine.
Aha. Arms coming from the center of the spine. Weren't you talking about that earlier? Yes, you were.
That's good.
Yeah. Wonderful. Hmm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Questions? Comments? I want to do it. Well, you're all going to get an opportunity to do it right now. Let me share with you just momentarily what I experience when Melba gets off the table, and she started that, what I'm calling a dance, and Carol yesterday. Because this is important feedback for you. When I experience in some way, does this make sense to you, staff? The release. So I'm holding myself back from dancing myself. So that is from the days when I was doing, quote, talk therapy and would be so drained after sessions at the end of the day. Being a facilitator or a witness to a process like this, I become energized and ready to move on rather than drained. And that's what we want for everybody in this room. Yes. So, I know Carol has an announcement to make. We're going to go from now into our SSB classes, and then we're going to meet back here in their private sessions, of course, after lunch. We're going to meet back here in the room at 3:30. Ruthie, you're doing the opening? Okay, Ruthie's doing an opening, and immediately after Ruthie's opening, Alana. So I just want you to maybe think over lunch about how we might want to greet her, because she's in the midst of writing her book, which I'm sure you know about and she'll tell you about. And actually, by her plane being canceled, she got an opportunity to spend the week in New York writing that book, which much needs to be done. And she's going to be working on the book while she's here this week, as well as teaching. But she also is very much missing you, and not being able to be here for the opening and see you arrive. So I just want you to think about what we might do to welcome her, so that she feels, with us right from the moment she walks in the door. So just give that some thought. Yes?
I just got an image of all of us forming a human archway from the doorway.
Uh-huh.
To walk through.
Okay, great. And you did too. So, Cecile and Georgina, would you like get together and then maybe network with others, because others may have other ideas as well, and see whatever you would like to come up with. And at 3:30, Ruthie will do her opening where Alana won't be present. And when Ruthie finishes her opening is when Alana is expecting to come in. So just sort of coordinate that and let Ruthie and or staff know what you're coming up.